Mark Feffer, the managing editor of Dice News, and I'm here with Leslie Stevens-Huffman, who is a career guide on our Tech Talk discussion boards and also a regular contributor to the Dice News blog. Hi, Leslie.
Hey, good morning, Mark. How are you?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Good.
Good. We are going to talk today about the questions that we hear the most from different users on Dice about tech careers and how to find a tech job. We've seen these questions for a number of years. They're the ones everybody always asks. And we have gotten some new ones also in the last couple of days. And if anybody's interested in asking a question during this broadcast, they can just post it to Tech Talk, and we'll be monitoring that. And let me just start with one of the questions that it might be obvious that it's asked a lot because it's about money. And the main thing is when somebody does find that they've got a job offer and they've been offered a salary, how can they tell whether or not it's a fair salary?
You know, that is a great question, Mark. And really there's like two stages to that. The first thing the job seeker really needs to know is, what's my market value? What am I worth out there? And there's a couple of ways that they can go about doing that. First, they need to look at some hard data. For example, salary surveys, salaries that might be posted on some of the jobs that we have on Dice. And then the next stage is to really sort of refine it and personalize it, right? Because macro data is great, but it doesn't really tell me as a job seeker what I'm worth. So then they need to check in with some recruiters who can actually look at their resume, look at their skills, and say, you know, this is a range that I think would be realistic for you. So that's sort of step one. But then the next step really is to sort of apply that in the job seeking mode. And that is to say, well, what is this employer asking of me and what have they offered? And that will really determine whether or not it's fair. And I'll give you an example. Let's say the going range for a DBA in your area and for somebody with your skills is $85,000 to $95,000. But, you know, this offer you're getting seems to be in the ballpark and is 9 pages long. And they're asking you to do a whole lot more than just be a DBA. And so that comes back to that fairness question, which is this really the right rate for the job? And so then you have to sort of look at, well, what are they expecting me to do? How many hours a week might I be asked to work? Those kinds of things. And that can tell you whether or not it's fair. If the requirements seem extreme, then you certainly might want to try to negotiate for something at the high end of the range based upon your market research. And the other thing that your market research will help you do is validate your request. Because you really want to go in there and you not only want to say, you know, I would like more money and here's why. Here's the value that I bring to you and here's what the market says I'm worth and here's what your position says I'm worth. And all of those things put together, I think, will be success.
Let me just ask you sort of a nuts and bolts question about that, because you said to talk to other people and particularly talk to recruiters.
Right.
How do recruiters mind getting that kind of call? I mean, the recruiter who may have brought you into the job is obviously going to try and negotiate or point you toward the lower end of the range. But how do recruiters feel when they get a call from somebody who they're not working with at that moment asking this kind of question?
Well, a good recruiter would see that as an entree to build a relationship, you know, with the IT professional, with you. And they should be willing to participate. I mean, first of all, that's part of their job, right? And to know what the market is. And secondly, that's an entree, I think, to maybe say, particularly if you have skills that I could use, I could say, well, maybe I can help you find a job. So I think they should be willing to do that because, you know, they essentially get paid to make placements.
Now, I just got a question in here that that's another question, actually, or it's more of a comment, but it's another one we hear a lot, and it's about customizing. The person says that one of the things that we're always telling them to do is to customize their resume, customize their cover letter, and they said it's a waste of their time. Their time can be better spent sending out more resumes to more potential employers because, after all, finding a job is a numbers game. What do you think about that?
Well, I think it's quantity and quality. I don't think it's one or the other. I think it's a little bit of both. However, I think if you don't put any forethought into your search and you're not strategic about it, and part of that strategic approach is customizing your resume, I think you're going to take an awful lot of you're going to kiss a lot of frogs, right, as we say, before you find a prince. And I think you would be better off, better served to spend a little bit more time to try to work your way into the company, customize your approach, look at who you know, and take fewer shots, and just hit the rim, make a basket versus having it bounce off the rim, so to speak. So I think it's worth the investment of time. I think the ROI for a job seeker is greater, because at the end of the day, it's about getting the one right opportunity. It's not about getting, 20 bad opportunities.
Right. Right. And, another thing that I hear a lot of people say about this is that the first screening is usually done by HR, and HR doesn't really know what they're looking for, so the customization isn't really going to matter. True?
I don't think that that's true, no. Because once again, your customization process is you're appealing to your audience, right? A resume today is a marketing document. It's about the value you offer. And I think you have to assume when you customize your resume that it's going to be reviewed not only by the IT manager, who's going to be maybe screening for more technical things, but by somebody who is less technical, and therefore they want to, hear about the value you offer in other ways. And so if you can kind of bridge that gap and talk to both of your audiences with that one document, then again, you're going to be more successful. Let me add one other thing on this same topic, because we do have an article up on the blog about quick customization, and I think to the extent that you can create various versions of your resume and sort of create this database of, if you will, of key bullet points and things, the customization process will go a lot faster for you. It can be more of a cut and paste deal versus, starting from scratch. It takes a long time to build a resume from scratch, but if you can create a Word document with, key bullet points that highlight your task, responsibilities, and accomplishments, and then refer to that, then your customization process might be down to 10 or 15 minutes. And that's where you see your ROI start to go up.
Now, you just said another word, or a word that's another hot button with a lot of job seekers, and that's marketing document.
Right.
People don't like that term. I think it makes them feel like they're sort of trying to sell a cereal box rather than sell their own talents and their own skills. But it really does make sense, doesn't it? Because they're trying to get the message of their own value across.
Absolutely.
How aggressive can they be, I guess, is what I'm asking.
I think they can be very aggressive. And, I really don't understand, quite frankly, the concerns about marketing yourself. I mean, you do that every day. You're even if you're employed, you need to be marketing yourself to your coworkers, your boss. I mean, it's just part of life, I think. And so I think job seekers are best served, and IT professionals in particular, by sort of embracing that and accepting it and moving forward, if you will, rather than trying to sort of fight that. And I think your technical prowess is part of your marketing package. It's not, you're not going to throw it out the window, but it's part of the value you bring. So it's not like employers are saying, gee, we don't value people with great technical skills. In fact, they do, but that's only part of what you offer. It's how you use them to help, that company achieve its mission and its business goals. And that's your value that you bring. So I think it's important to consider your resume to be that first step in the process of marketing yourself.
Now, Another thing is, let's talk networking for a couple of minutes. Networking, I think, is largely recognized as being one of the most effective, if not the most effective way of finding a job.
Right.
But I think a lot of people misinterpret it as being the kind of thing where you're supposed to go out and meet people and push yourself, really, sort of try to give them the sale so they can hire you, and they don't realize that often it's a question of degrees, that you just get to know somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody, and that eventually that connection gives you the opportunity. So you get to go into a company warm, as opposed to having made a cold call and over the transom kind of approach. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, first of all, I mean, statistics show that about 80% of hires, come from referred candidates. And so stats don't lie, right? It's the way people get hired. And I have at the end of the day, hiring is personal. It's a people. People hire people. Okay, I don't care how automated you make the hiring process. It's people hire people. So, couple of points that you made in there. First of all, it's not about sort of cold calling or knocking on doors. Nobody's going to do you a favor if they don't know you. So it is, as you mentioned, about kind of extending that reach, being in the consummate mode of networking and putting yourself out there and just developing relationships. And then when you need to ask for something, you're in a good position to do that. And plus, people will, if they know you and they think you're really talented, they may throw your hat in the ring for you. They may call you up and say, hey, we've got an opening at our company. Would you be interested? So I just think it's one of those things that sort of, it's like a snowball, and it just gets bigger and bigger the more you do it. And the dividends come over time. It's not something that you can get a reward on, just right off the bat.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things that people misinterpret, is they think that if they need a job and they start networking, they'll very quickly find a job. Or they think that's what we're telling them. But really, what we're telling them is to develop these relationships over time, especially when you don't need a job, because then they've sort of developed all of this momentum already when the time does come that they want to leave, or it might bring them the opportunity that they want to pursue.
Absolutely. It's like I say, it's like buying a blue chip stock. It's going to pay dividends over time. And so, you've got a network today for the job you want tomorrow or next year. And it is very difficult to just go out and build a network from scratch if you lose your job today. That's hard. I mean, you can certainly start with, well, who do I know? And gain some momentum, but you'd be much better off doing it proactively.
Okay. Now, you'd mentioned before 9-page job descriptions, and it's certainly something that we hear. Both candidates complain that, as one person says, employers are describing purple squirrels, because the job descriptions they're writing have no basis in reality. I've also heard employers say, yeah, we throw everything in just so we can get somebody who has a lot of the skills that we're looking for, kind of the right mix, and we'll sort of tease that out of the resumes we get and the people that we're talking to. But how given that everybody seems to agree that job descriptions are very long and often unrealistic, how can a candidate decide that a particular job actually is right for them and they're not wasting their time by applying for it?
Well, there's a couple of things they can do. First of all, the top third of the job description is the most important. And then you really have to understand some of the nomenclature that they use in there. For example, is this a must-have? Or is this just a preferred, or, we'd also, like to see this. And I think if you meet most of the, must-have requirements, then you go ahead and you throw your hat in the ring. The person that they hire will never have all of that. But they will select the person that meets, most of their must-have requirements, who can really, come in and do the job, or as they say, hit the ground running to the greatest extent. And the combination of that and the person they think is the best fit for their environment, and who can maybe acquire some of those skills or give them some extra things over time. So again, that comes back to what we talked about earlier, that marketing. Mm-hmm. It's how you represent yourself. If you say, hey, look, I can do this, 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 and that, which you really need, but let me tell you about a couple of other things that I can do for you. Mm-hmm. And this is why I think I'm the best person for your job. I think I'm somebody you should really be considering. So I wouldn't let it dissuade me as a job seeker. If you can meet most of the top requirements for the job, the things that a DBA or a developer needs to do on a daily basis, don't be discouraged by it, because believe me, nobody has all that stuff.
Okay. What do you think? Let's talk about cover letters. We have a question here from somebody who says, why does anybody care about a cover letter, or why do you even talk about cover letters when it comes to replying to online job postings? People are only looking at the resumes through job boards. Cover letters are just a waste of time. What do you think?
Yes and no. Okay. The fact is that they're not always ignored. Some hiring managers, in particular, the IT manager, may very much want to read your resume. Maybe the screener or the recruiter might not look at it, but by the time they go through those resumes and it comes down to the top 4 or 5, and that gets in front of the IT manager, they may very much want to look at that. And that could easily separate you. It's a tough deal, Mark. I mean, I get the challenge, right? It takes time to put them together. And with all the electronic screening that goes on out there, there's just the sense that, hey, I went to all this trouble and nobody looked at it.
Okay.
But the fact is, it could separate you from the crowd. And it's a good way to not only demonstrate your interest, but to showcase your communication skills. And that could separate you from the other candidates in the pool.
Okay. Now, it's important to pay attention when you're replying through a job board, say, DICE,
right.
That in the form where you have the opportunity to present yourself through a cover note, that you take advantage of that. I think many people don't realize that.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. It's, the market's gotten a little bit better, but let's go back a little bit here, when it was really bad, right? And people were really frustrated looking for jobs. And, I think one of the things that they don't always realize is that sometimes it is just that extra effort, or showing how much you want something, that makes the difference. And it's the small things, whether you just put a note, as you mentioned, with, if you don't even go to all the trouble to do a full-blown cover letter, if you at least customize a paragraph, and sometimes that's all you can do when you apply through a job board is send like a paragraph or something, taking the time to follow up, all of those things. If you look at this big pool of candidates and there's, hundreds of people in there, what causes some of them to rise to the top? And sometimes it's just the fact that they are more diligent. They do show a greater interest, and they take that little bit of extra time to do a few things. That's all it takes sometimes.
Okay. All right. Well, just for a last thing, I thought it might be fun if we sort of exchanged views on what the most important parts or the most important components of a job search, an effective job search are, and I'll start. And I would say that it's networking and bearing in mind the long term. I would say that it's customization, making sure that every approach that you make to a company is really geared toward that company. And the third thing is something that we didn't really talk about very much, but I would say it's respecting HR and respecting the recruiters, because even though they may not be as technically versed as the hiring manager, they have talked to the hiring manager, they know enough to understand what he or she wants, and ultimately they're the person or the people who are going to make sure that your resume gets seen. So those are my top 3. How about yours?
I would say, first of all, taking a strategic approach. I think, to the greatest extent that you don't shotgun and do really look at companies where your skills and your talents align and you have a good cultural fit and you know people in the organization, you're going to be more successful. So I would say that's really important. I think another thing is to take a marketing approach to your search as well, to embrace the idea that, you really need to put yourself out there and express your value. And I think for IT professionals in particular, this last thing I'm going to mention here, and that is to equate your tech skills to your business contributions, to what they mean. Answer the so what question. So what that you're a top DBA? So what that you're the best programmer? What does that mean? Well, it means, that I make fewer errors. It means that I write really clean code. And what that means to you is, fewer bugs that have to be fixed and better shareholder satisfaction, things like that. So I think that's really important for IT professionals, is to bring it back to what it does for the company, what their skills mean to the company and why they're important.
Okay, great. So before we sign off, let me just tell everybody that if you have more questions for us, you can go to techtalk.dice.com, where Leslie and or I will answer your questions, whatever they might be. And also keep track of the latest job news, tech job news, and our ongoing advice series. We publish advice almost every day, and certainly tech news and features every day. And that's at news.dice.com. And of course, make sure you check out dice.com for jobs and other opportunities. And Leslie, thanks very much, and we'll see you on another Dice News Hangout.
Great. Thanks for having me, and I hope to talk to everybody on the discussion board.
Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.